Welcome to week 3 of Women's History Month. And today we are going to read poets who maybe are not in history but are perhaps making history on their own. And I'm going to get to as many poems by as many of them as possible. So um, we're going to skip the Rumi for this evening, and we are going to go to directly into the poetry. So I would say that the only poet, though, well, there's only two poets that I'm reading from tonight that I have not yet met. Some of these poets are, I count among my best friends, and so I'm very lucky that I know enough poets to create a poetry show from. So the first person that I'm reading from is Nicole Paisley Martensen, who provided me 3 poems. Nicole lives out in Fort Bragg on a a road called Nameless Lane. And I love that, especially for a poet, because you're out in the void or out in the unnamed, and you get to basically name things. And I always think of poetry and poets as being the distillers of language. You know, the novelists and the nonfiction writers are, kind of brewing up beer and wine, but the poets are actually brewing up hard liquor. The hard liquor of language is what poets are creating. This one by Nicole Paisley Martensen is called The Stag. I smell you before I see you. When I step out into the back door dawn, dew on my bare feet, steam rising from the grass as the first hint of day approaches. You are not even a 5-point buck. You are a stag, the one from the Renaissance paintings of my dreams. Beyond any sense of regal, your exhales smelling like pine sap, sweat, labdanum, freedom, intoxicating my gaze in the sacred morning. Could I walk 3 steps closer? Could I stroke you, mount you, ride away with you? Yes, all this and more, you tell me. But I stay perfectly still. I am the fair-haired maiden meant for some calling, I don't exactly know what, in this human world. And when you finally turn and walk slowly back into the forest, I move to the spot where you stood and inhale your carnal essence. That is The Stag by Nicole Paisley Martensen. Here is a fun poem that actually reminds me of the last poet we're going to read today, Lynn Unger. It's called Sustenance. If you're with me in the end times, you won't have to worry about going hungry, because I'll have a hunk of Reggiano cheese rind stashed away in my backpack, along with a scrap of dark chocolate, some dried persimmons, a line from an Auden poem, a nugget of copal, a stick of Palo Santo, a smidgen of a joint, some sandy surfboard wax, some gas receipts from long ago that we could boil down and make into a tea. The white Tara mantra on heavy rotation. We've got it made, baby. That is Sustenance by Nicole Paisley Martensen. And one final poem from Nicole, this one called Walloon Lake. If no one had ever put me in a birch bark canoe with a paddle and a ham sandwich and pushed me off the narrows to float, if no one had ever explained how to pull the rudder up on the sunfish if you want the wind to really take you and carry you across the lake, and how to tack back with hardly any wind at all. If no one had ever handed me the key with the orange and white floating keychain and shown me how to open the throttle and where to fill the gas and how to end tie to the dock while idling. If the water lilies hadn't bloomed in such a profusion, if the turtles hadn't come out to sun themselves on snags, if the loon hadn't crossed my wake, I might have let one of the boys of summer take me to the drive-in and fuck me in the back seat of his brother's Camaro, the musty upholstery smelling like a suburban downstate garage, the ripped stitching scratching the backs of my thighs while Bruce Willis died harder. But instead, I'm still out here, floating around in bodies of water, escaping, exploring, pondering aloneness, coming home. That's Walloon Lake by Nicole Martensen. Our second poet tonight is, and I'm sort of going from, I think I'm going from people I met first in my life to later, and I think that's accurate. I didn't even realize that I had organized things in that way. This is a most excellent poem about, well, you'll see what it's about, from Tina LeCount Myers, whose 3 published books are quite fantastic, and you should get them, starting with, of course, the first one called The Song of All. This one is called Great, Good, and Other Voices. If not a room, then a space. If not a space, then a corner. If not that, then my soul. I claim that and more to do what I must. They call it a hobby, they, them, those in the know, in power to judge. They say hobby when I know it is a calling. It has been within me from the moment my cells divided. How many lives have I lived where the breadth of genius existed only upon the y-axis, where x is only to be solved for y. Why? Why did Virginia? Why did Sylvia? Why do I? The axis of power is not upon the boundaries of a map. It is in the corners of every life. You woke up, you took a breath. You knew today would be a struggle, a small death. Here I die. Here you die, just a little. Because they give no room, no space, no corner. But my soul tells me I am bigger than no. My soul tells me to speak beyond what they say is so. So much more is possible when fear is not in the room, the space, the corner. And that is Great, Good, and Other Voices by Tina LeCount Myers. A most excellent poem. Now I'm going to read 2 poems by Patria Brown. Also, I think both Tina and Patria are both on the call tonight. This first one is called Elder Song. Beneath the killing eye, a plump morsel stirs, scurries in the dusk-filled weeds. Rustling in the fir branch far above is a sharpness, certain as our deaths. Living is to despise, to worship, this low percussive tone of air and bone, heads circling, claws waiting, faithful to the moment as our hearts beating. Into the night our souls will go out, Long ago, some cautious men placed an owl's heart next to that of a woman asleep. She might unknowingly speak secrets into the waiting darkness. Who? What will be left behind this time? Dear life, many little deaths, precious dailiness, the lovers, milk, and sighs in baby's breath. The light in toddlers' blue-green eyes, the schoolgirls' tongues bright and brash. The owl seizes what scurries past. Still autumn is. The hair turns gray. Blood rhythms abandon women. Men's necks sag. Lines in the jaws harden fast. Oh, night procession. Oh, fierce, raptured flight. Take aim. Bear down. Rattling squeeze engulf tender juiciness of flesh. That is Elder Song by Patria Brown. Here is another poem by Patria Brown titled For Audre Lorde, December 6th, 1992. Some of you poets have been writing a long time. You came out of Earth's insides, prayed to the earth. Yesterday, you returned to the earth. I pray to you tonight, you, Audre Lorde, mother of poets, black, white, yellow, to you, deep in our insides now, to you, who said there are no honest poems about dead women. I still want to sleep in your bed, to snuggle against your smooth skin, bathed in moonbeams of peace, warmed by sun rays of Eros. You have mothered me before. So I, reluctant in the gray morning light, must again become a woman. I want you to reveal to my daughters, as you did to others, mysteries in stones. You, draped in beauty, have left me instructions. You, who have been a cape of truth to me, insist now I must wear your garment fastened with my trust. I still want you to show me the strength of terror, how you loved the empty space where your breast had once been, how your jewelry would fit there just so. You have left me in that void, forever pregnant with poems and alone. I still want to tell you so much, to see what you would say. Maya Angelou is composing a poem for the inauguration. U.S. troops are going to Somalia. I have news for you, Mother. There is no news, only how I feel tonight without you. Alone without your heat and milk, Mother, my own company reeks. My throat teems with words, messy, confused, upset. I am afraid. These words are what you want from me. You have taught me. My silence will never protect me. That is for Audre Lorde, September 6, 1992. Our next poem is Molly Tannenbaum, who is a Seattle poet. We've read her on Storytime before, but I really wanted to read her again. These poems are from a book called The Arborists and I don't think this is her very most recent book, but I think this is her next to most recent book, published in 2023, just last year. The first one is called I Need a Hummingbird. a whirring bright and quick sharp right here, a fist of hunger here, gold and neon, need something small, 80 times a second, a blur that flies backwards, a shimmer at once green and vermilion. Need what may be desperation, can't tell by looking, may be color and sugar. I need something from the beginning, continuously starving to death. Please, a glow here and here, a nest of fine spider hair. Need a dip, a bead, repeated prickings, a series of clicks by which like can find like. Need something, a thing that moves, a burr in the air, a flame, a little light, something going breakfast, lunch, dinner, lunch, dinner, lunch, dinner, all over. I need a species. I can't read, and its entire survival kit, a sky, a plume, puckering red nectar lips. Need a beak that fits. Need what I haven't invented. Please, I need leaving alone. I need pure food and a thin enough mixture. I need something almost transparent. Right here, that you see and I don't. You calling, come quick, while I'm in the bathroom, endlessly spitting and brushing. That was I Need a Hummingbird. This poem by Molly Tannenbaum is called Couple Eating Oranges After Dinner. In his mouth, grinding blind animals smash each teardroppy sack. His tongue, that gummy muscle, sorting piths and casings. The inner skins of the empties collapsed on each other, the walls of his throat glopping together like the word pulp. And she's hearing in X-ray, pulp, in 3D, pulp, pulp, hearing with her full biome, the podge on his upper palate, that skull bone with skin pasted on it, hearing a burst and juice dribbling down in the dark of his body, his prehensile lips already locked around the next segment tip. His chomp like the joke about how God must be a civil engineer, since who else would run a sewer line through a playground? His orange vanished, hers peeled but still whole, her globe of juice raw to the air. Now she's scraping the pith of the peel with her teeth. She's eating it. She's really eating it. Her gulps and muscles possibly slow-mo and magnified to him, though he's clicking around in his puzzle faster. Now he's got its trick. And you'd think with her embryo ears, her microscope ears, she'd hear her own tongue. But she's in his mud pond and tubes. The juice and pulp now slid further inside him, behind his chest, that broadness she will soon lay her head on and hear the orange glow of his heart. The beat orange becomes in the wraparound night that squeezes and spins its contents on toward an opening. And we may read more from these last two poets in a moment. But right now I want to read two short poems by Lynn Unger, who lives in the Washington State area and who is, I believe, the cousin of someone who is also, maybe, I don't even know who is on the meeting today. Let's see if I can figure that out. Yes, her cousin is on the call today. So this is The Guru on the Stairs by Lynn Unger. You might assume the place to look for a guru is at the top of a mountain. but you might not have to go that far. On the stairs, there's a tree, more exactly a Dracena named Steve. Not even at the top of the stairs, just at the landing, really. Ready for casual conversation. Of course, casual conversation is not what you want with a guru. We need someone who can hear the questions we don't ask in public. What do I do now? In a world with so much wanting, what is enough? What is enlightenment, and how will I know when I get there? Steve doesn't mind your asking. Nothing about these questions shocks him or is even particularly new. Have a seat on the landing, and the guru will speak. What is stopping you from breathing freely? Are you getting enough water? Why are you worried about the leaves when you could be attending to your roots? That is The Guru on the Stairs by Lynn Unger. One more poem that I've chosen from Lynn Unger, and then we are going to have a short introduction to Dorothy Alison, and then read her wonderful short story called Lupus. This is a poem by Lynn Unger called Undiscovered. This morning, in the kitchen, I went to put away a knife and discovered an empty drawer. Nothing had disappeared aside from my attention when I first unpacked. Months have gone by, and it turns out that I have not one, but two kitchen drawers full of nothing but possibility. Every time I think I know this world, it turns out there are undiscovered countries right under my nose. And isn't that true of all of us, right? Isn't that true of all of us? I'm going to read one more poem by Patria Brown, and then we are going to go to Dorothy Alison. This one is called The Eye of the Earth. Who sees mountains on footprints, the skins of onions as floodplains, blades of grass as bamboo forests, scarlet feathers as skeletal sunsets? Who delves into the soul of things, penetrates the ordinary layer of reality, and comprehends inexplicable beauty everywhere? Whose impeccable sight grasps the wonder of creation, the mystery inherent in the largest and smallest form of life on the planet? Whose eye focuses on totality and singularity simultaneously? Who holds the past, present, and future of any sentient being within silent stake? Whose wrinkled skin bulges and encircles the enormous energy of my gargantuan gaze? Whose skin crackles and folds around ultimate knowing? The vision of the planet, whose images are stored in the infinite crevices of my ancient memory. That is The Eye of the Earth by Patria Brown. Thank you all of the poets who contributed poems to our local edition of Women's History Month, the poets who are making history. Keep writing poetry. Keep doing it, because we need your poetry. We need your vision. We need what you have to bring. The short story I'm going to read is called Lupus by Dorothy Alison, and there's a few things that I think you need to know about Dorothy Alison before we begin it. The first is that Dorothy Alison was born in the same small town that my mother was born in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina. Second thing to know about Dorothy Alison is that she grew up in abject poverty. My mother also grew up in abject poverty, although I did not. I grew up sort of lower middle class, but my mother grew up very poor. I believe her mother, my grandmother, until the time she died, lived in a house that was about 500 or 600 square feet, right? It just had 2 or 3 rooms to it. And I think the bathroom had most recently been moved inside. So, the third thing you need to know about Dorothy Allison is that she moved from the South to San Francisco and is a very famous lesbian writer and poet, author of this collection of short stories, other collections of short stories, and several books. The first book, which really got her on the map, was called Bastard Out of Carolina. And one of the short stories in this collection that I'm reading from today, called Trash, was crafted into a chapter in that semi-autobiographical novel called Bastard Out of Carolina. This short story is entitled Lupus, and there's a little explanation at the bottom. I want you to listen. These descriptions are very important when listening to this story. So there are 2 definitions of lupus. Lupus, any of various skin diseases, especially a chronic tuberculosis disease of the skin or mucous membranes, a particularly dangerous disease of metabolical origin, incurable but sometimes controlled by steroid drugs, which exhausts the energies of its victims and necessitates an extremely careful and restricted lifestyle. Lupus, a wolf from eating into the substance of cancer. Lupus by Dorothy Alison. You don't get home often enough. It is August, and the high summer has fattened all the trees on Old Henderson Road, dried the road to a powder and gray, loose loam, coating the myrtle and dogwood trees with a flat white alkali stain. Temple sits on her porch while her oldest girl rinses her hairpins in a tub of bleach and spring water. Off in the yard, the dogs raise a dust cloud. I wipe sweat off my mouth and drink tea like I never left home. Temple slides her palms on the worn porch step, flat and smooth under her hands, back and forth. We watch a long green trailer turn the corner, shear the leaves on the myrtle, just miss the leaning porch, the poplar, the young dogwood. That would have done it. Temple laughs softly, open-mouthed and happy. I could have put in the new plumbing this year instead of next. Anything that's that big's got to be insured. I nod. Scratch chigger bites on my ankles, unable to relax to pissing in the weeds, hoping that trailer comes back and pays for more than the plumbing. She married late, Cousin Temple did. Married late and well. A steady boy, one of those Roberts from Asheville, a lean, freckled, still boy, as steady as she was and as quiet. A good son who loved his mother and never ran around like the other boys all the other cousins married early. Temple rolls a little hair between 2 fingers and turns her red-tanned face up into the sun slanting past the porch beams. This house, yard, dirt road, myrtle trees, kudzu holding the screens on the windows, none of it would stand up to a northern winter, a Yankee tax assessor, or an estate sale. But it puts Temple outside them, a property owner, something none of the rest of the family can imagine becoming. Temple has been an outsider all her life, though living on her own since her mama left her with her own mother when Temple was barely 7, a quiet, red-faced 7, as she is now a quiet, red-faced woman whose hair shows gray where it lays close to her skull. You were a bean when you were a girl, Temple tells me, A string bean, and your sister was a butter bean. Your mama was a stretch of stringy pork, and together you didn't make a decent Sunday dinner. When Temple laughs, her head goes back. Her long red hair shakes out, and all the gray she has so skillfully tried to hide flows loose and flashes at me, silver and white. Temple, I tell her, you're finally getting old. Bullshit, she flares. And apple butter. I'm just more woman than the men in this town can handle, and I've more left to me than most people start out with. Then she smiles. Oh, she smiles. The skin around her mouth that's aged so dry and tight flushes and fills like the grin on a mewling baby. But her teeth slip loose, and her hand flies up to hide the wolf grin. God damn, she sighs. Her daughter doesn't look up. Temple's hand caresses her porch, strokes the soft, worn wood like the lover she barely remembers. It ain't Robert, you know, but it is. I'd swear. All I have of him anyway. Nights I seem to hear him breathing, but it's the walls. They sweat so. They smell just the way he did. And I got to where I don't care if I'm crazy. I talk to this house like it was him. Somehow it is. There was an Army insurance policy, a $1,000 burial and a $4,000 mortgage, plus two more for the plumbing, which never worked anyway. In the North, it would have brought nothing. In Asheville, only a little more. But here off Old Henderson Road in 1959, it was an estate for 3 orphans and a red-headed woman suddenly going gray. Lupus, she says. It was lupus. An old story I've heard many times these 25 years. Temple scratches herself and spits, angry now as she was angry then. Damn doctors, damn hospitals, never said what else. Lupus, you know, kills slow, takes a long time, years, but Lord Robert sank into that bed. He died so fast. Weeks seemed like no time. He just melted away. Mariette stirs her hairpins. Claire brings a pitcher of tea to the door. I wipe my mouth again, saying nothing, watching the sweat shine on Temple's cheeks. When I was a child and slept in her bed, I would lie awake and watch the line, eyelids to cheekbones to mouth. Never touched it, never once reached out to touch her cheekbone, though I dreamed of pulling her into my neck, sucking her throat, and licking her eyes. Now I curl my fingers around my hip bones, hug myself, and don't quite reach out to her trembling hands. You never saw the store, did you? Little flecks of broken wood grain pull up under Temple's fingernails. Your mama wouldn't bring you girls around. Hell, your mama thought you girls were meant to be special. Wasn't gonna carry you around to no honky-tonk roadhouse. She reaches for me, touching my sun-warmed thigh. But it wasn't like that, not really. The store was across from the high school and clean as a dried peach pit. Scrubbed hollow. Hell, I scrubbed me raw. We had pinball machines, a candy counter, Coke coolers, chip racks, and billiards. No liquor except for Robert's beer in the back cooler. But we lost it, of course. We lost everything. Temple pauses, pulls at her tea, and frowns. Hard to remember all that. Hard times and craziness. I was crazy, you know. Oh, yeah, we lost the store, the car, even the baby's bed. All those weeks with Robert lying still, breathing like a train going up a hill. All that slow, crazy time, and me crazy. Me just out of my head. I was howling at grannies, screaming at the girls, tearing at myself. Hated myself. like I'd done it, like I'd brought it on him. Nobody in his family had it, but Granny said we'd had a cousin with it, so maybe it'd come through me. It was important then how it had come on us. Later, I didn't care. But then it was like that, like that. Then it was the only thing that mattered. Dust drifts down in the sunlight. Another truck turns the corner and shakes the porch. It's a shortcut, this road and Temple's lot. Truckers come through and wave. Temple ignores them, slaps her porch, watches the dirty paint flake down. The dogs in the yard, tied off to a tree, howl and lick and lie down again, panting in the heat. I got mustard grass, and yellow nettles. Grow 'em 'cause it makes people mad, 'cause ain't nobody can tell me anything. It keeps people away, makes sure no one touches what's mine. They still have fireflies in Greenville and green tree frogs, katydids, and rock-sucking worms. The muscadines still hang in sheets off the trees behind Old Henderson Road. Once every few years, Temple takes up with some traveling man, somebody she can't see staying around. She wants nobody permanent now, not after Robert and the girls, that first baby, everybody she ever loved. Temple's nothing but trouble, the cousins claim. They complain of her life, her girls, hard-ass, cold-hearted women. Everybody agrees. Thinks more of that ratty-walled house than her family. Thinks more of herself than a woman should. Off Old Henderson Road, the porches tilt. The paint chips off. Temple's bathroom is still out back of the pines. She has the cousins come over to prop the windows, wire back the roof where the slats are sliding down. Where the paint has gone, the wood stays bare and rain-marked. She won't paint again. Says it will just flake off in the heat. Kids come over from West Greenville, drive their pickups right up on the grass, hide behind the dead vines that shield the shed out back, stare in where Temple stores broken chairs, empty boxes, an extra bed. They giggle a lot, smoke dope, and occasionally fall through rotten boards. You gonna pay for that, you white-eyed son of a bitch? Temple threatens to pen that shed for chickens, set traps, loose the dogs. All she really does is talk to the uncles real loud on the phone. Come up here and shoot me a few of these bastards. Sometimes she doesn't bother to dial. Sometimes she doesn't bother to roll over or get up. Lies in bed for a day, her face set and angry, so the girls know to stay away. Gets up thinner, but quiet. Goes back to work as the crossing guard at Greenville Southeast, the only work she's had since Robert died. You ever read that Flannery O'Connor? I got the book from Macon a few years back. Heard she'd had the lupus. Thought it might be in there, but God knows it ain't. You read that crazy woman? Made me think people's worse than I thought, and I thought bad enough. But the worst was some of it made me laugh and then made me shamed. Thinking what kind of woman laughs at such troubles. Babies drowning themselves for Jesus, preachers and old ladies getting their whole family shot dead 'cause they forgot the right highway. Flat her hand, her face, the sunlight on the porch. Temple's memory of a boy dead now 25 years. I'd hate to think it was the lupus. Get her to think of something else, Mama asked me. People say she's going crazy out on that old porch. Nobody really knows Temple. The women smile about her, say, Lord God, but she loved that man. Everybody says it's a pity how she sits and how she don't get on with her life, take another husband, have another child, plant zinnias or baby's breath, and go on. Go on. I sit on Temple's porch and drink coffee, drink tea when the morning heats up, talk to her of New York and California, of cities she's never seen. I watch how she laughs, her red hair swinging from side to side, bringing the gray and white to the surface, bringing out the shadows and wrinkles under her eyes. How can you live in a city? All those pictures like to make my heart hurt. I could smell it. Hot concrete, tar, and piss. No green for miles, no color at all. Lord, where's the life in it? I tell her about the color of night, the lights on the bridges, the hot shine in the women's eyes, the cold glare of metal moving fast. I tell her about the cold winter light shining on flat stacks of slate hanging over the New Jersey highways, the cars growling rock music out their vents, how tight the people wear their clothes, how tall the buildings, how sweet the dawn after you do not sleep for days. The silence answers me. I wipe my fingertips on the porch, smell myrtle and crushed onion through the dust of passing trucks. Watch Claire across the yard, how she swings her arms and throws back her head, her white face with the black eyebrows etched as high and fierce as crows across the highway. I have not been this still in years, have not heard my own heart when I was not shadowed by full dark and bourbon, not looked into a face that mirrored mine as Temple's does, bone to bone, ancient grief to daily rage. How do you do it? I ask her. How do you live this far from the rest of the world? What do I need the world for? Temple laughs at me. Besides, I got sugar just like Granny. Came on 2 years ago, and pressure. They say, though, I ain't checking. What good is it to know you're going to die sooner than later? Makes me think the world's too damn close on me anyway. Claire, honey, pour me another glass of tea. Claire, the wire child, thin as the poplar on the corner, pale as the birch peeling in the backyard, brings the jug in 2 hands and smiles at me. The little reddish-brown nodules on her shoulders could be freckles, but are not. The flush under Temple's skin deepens, and her hands start to shake on the glass. She is seeing what I am watching. Claire's smile and those deadly little warts. You know, a lot of famous people died of the lupus, but then people have had it for years and never die, or at least don't die of just that. She sighs, rolls the ragged ends of her hair between fingers, suddenly flushed pink. You know what I did? She looks away, away from me, away from her daughter, away from the dogs who paw restlessly at the bare patches near the trees. I let them take his body. Told them to go ahead, do anything they had to. When it came down to it, I said, just tell me what it was. The girls, of course, I was thinking of the girls, and they took him, did their stuff to him, things I can't even imagine. I don't think in the end we buried more than the frame of him. Temple's hands shake. Her tea spills over the splintered boards of the porch. Leaning forward makes her face go a deeper red. Doctors, like lawyers, you know, they don't hurry. I thought it would be a while, weeks, maybe even months, but Lord, years. I never thought they'd take years. And then tell me nothing. Just the lupus because of the spots and the strangling. Lupus like with Claire or that cousin I don't know that I really believe ever existed. But hell, they don't know really what killed him. Lupus kills slow and Robert died fast. Sometimes I dream sometimes, oh God. Temple rocks her head back and forth, casts a glance at her daughters, and looks quickly away, speaking in a whisper that does not carry to where they sit. I dream sometimes I lead the children out in front of a big old semi, a row of hearses following easy as you please, all their daddies nodding at me as they're mowed down. She shakes her head, shakes her shoulders, her whole torso following, the pink in her cheeks going brighter than sunburn. But sometimes, too, I dream I'm alone, walking through Greenville as it burns, the sparks coming down on my neck, but nothing burning me. No one sees me. They come out and throw water and yell. I just walk through and grin. Imagine the kind of woman I am to take pleasure in that kind of thing. Imagine the kind of woman she is. Temple on her porch with the paint flaking down. Temple with her hands still on her knees, ridged and knobby, the veins blue, purple, and high. Her face a permanent red-tan flush. Her daughters going in and out slowly, carefully, the deadly warts on the pale skin of their necks and calves burning her eyes. Imagine what kind of a woman sits still, safe in her own mind, slow as myrtle leaves turning. Sugar thickening the blood in her veins, pressure pinking her skin, wanting nothing more than new plumbing and her daughter's slow movement forward, alive. Some man to come along now and then, never quite as real as the man who lives behind her eyes. Temple writes me once a year, a letter that lists who's died, who's been born, a letter that ends with a reminder of who she is. She is my favorite cousin. After me, the most remarkable, the one who lived with us the year I was 7, the year Mama almost died, the year she first had cancer, and I fell in love with the very idea of red-headed women. Do you hear from Temple? Mama always asks me. She say anything about the girls? Heard from Dot that Mariette was planning on getting married and Claire wasn't doing very well at all. Every year I do not go home. It hurts me. I think of Temple, the year I was 7 and she was 18, the year I was 11 and she lost her lover, the year she lost her teeth and her baby girl, the years I realized she would never be mine. Do you hear from Temple? My mama, my cousins, my aunts always ask. I am the one she writes to, and if I have not heard from her, then no one has. Sometimes I do not answer. I fall into Temple's white-eyed memories, the silence of her flushed cheeks, her thin face, and hot eyes. The wolf in my neck bares its teeth, stretches, lays one paw on the other, dreaming of fire and sparks raining down, myrtle leaves blackening in the heat. I fight him with my love for Temple, hug to myself the warmth and stillness of her porch, and certainly that she does not fear the wolf in her. The certainty that she does not fear the wolf in her, the wolf who hides his teeth, but watches out of her eyes. That is Storytime for Saturday, March 16th, 2024. I am happy that you came.